Welcome one and all to another day here at The Damage Report. I am John Iadarola, and I'm always excited to, bring you the news every day. But you know what's particularly exciting? Having a new guest on the show. It happens so rarely, so I really like to savor it. We've got a special one for you. Joining us now, comedian, actor, podcaster, activist, probably a lot of other things too. Daniel Franzese, welcome to the show. Glad to have you here.
How are you? I am a very happy multi-hyphenate. I'm glad to be here.
Very glad to have you here. We've been lucky enough to do a couple of specials together, but haven't done a full show. So very excited to have you here. I am going to go out on a limb and say that a lot of people in the audience probably already familiar with you, but for people who might not be familiar. Either with you or just your podcasting and all that. You want to tell people a little bit about what you do?
Well, people also, I'm the CEO of Being Damien from the original Mean Girl vocation. Yeah, I also do stand up around the country and everything else. And I was Eddie Bear on HBO's Looking, which is now getting a whole resurgence thanks to this awesome Murray Bartlett renaissance. And yeah, you can catch me on TV being a funny guy all the time, but I like to do a lot of artivism too. I like to try to infuse the underrepresented parts of myself into the work that I do and speak up, because I may not be the smartest person in the room, but I'm a pretty loud megaphone. So.
Don't sell yourself short in the brains department either. But anyway, we're gonna use both the brain and the megaphone on our show. Those two things in mouths are really the only things you need to do with this stuff. So we're gonna do the best that we can with it. And for those of you in the audience, we do have a lot to look forward to through the course of our show. We're gonna be doing another dive into the current state of Ron Desantis. There's some good news and some bad news, like legitimately bad news, but also not everything is looking as bad for Ron DeSantis as like the view from 1,000 miles up would imply. Doesn't mean he's gonna be able to use this good news to his advantage, but we are gonna talk about it. Should you punch down? Often it's frowned upon, but Donald Trump is gonna make the case for it as a good thing to do. We've got Democrats being censured in the House. We have some people from a variety of different religions using claims of religious freedom to argue for access to abortion, kind of turning some of the laws that conservatives have passed over the last decade on their head. I find it to be fascinating. And we will be touching base with one of the big civil wars brewing on the right, Marjorie Greene and Lauren Boebert. Everybody knows that they fought yesterday. Nobody's surprised by that. But coming out of that fight, the two sides they're following very different strategies, and I find it to be fascinating. All that's in the first hour. In the aftermath, we also have news from around the world and Meanwhile In. And will we have the world's first billionaire cage match? My fingers are crossed. We'll give you the details after this. But in advance of all that, please hit the like button and share the stream if you're on a platform that allows for that. And if you want to send any comments to either myself or to Daniel, you can do that. Super chats, tweets, all that, we'll respond as we go. But with all that said, Daniel, are you ready to start the show?
Yeah, let's do this.
Okay, let's do it. Let's do it. Former Republican Governor Larry Hogan was not mincing his words when asked to evaluate Ron DeSantis' current performance in the Republican primary.
I think DeSantis has really underperformed. He started out, and we've seen this happen before in other races, but he was the one getting all the attention. He was wall-to-wall coverage on Fox News. He was the only one other than Trump that was really getting a lot of attention. He raised a ton of money. He was a fairly successful governor in a big state who got reelected. And then he started making all kinds of mistakes. I think the campaign is one of the worst I've seen so far, and he's dropped like a rock.
Is it over for DeSantis?
I think it's getting close to being over. I mean, he just doesn't connect with people. He's not a good campaigner. He's not a good debater. He's a smart guy. Went to Yale and Harvard.
Doesn't lead with that.
Yeah, he doesn't lead with that.
He's not a good campaigner. He doesn't campaign well. He doesn't debate well. His scrambled eggs are runny. The dude smells terrible on a regular basis. Not a nice evaluation. And look, some people might say, well, Larry Hogan's a Republican, but he's probably just planning to run against him. So you can't really trust what he's saying. Well, no, he says he's ruling out a run for the Republican nomination this time around. And he doesn't seem to love Trump either. So you might think that he's inclined to be in favor of Ron DeSantis, but I don't know, maybe at least on this topic, he lives in the reality-based world. And Ron DeSantis really does seem to be underperforming, or not even underperforming. He's not even really performing. He's been running for president for like a month now. He's running against Gavin Newsom more in California than he is against Donald Trump. And I got news for him. Gavin Newsom's not in the Republican primary. So it's a bunch of weird strategy and weird flip-flops and weird facial expressions. Daniel, this is the first time we're talking about this. What do you make of Ron DeSantis so far?
Well, Ron DeSantis, I think, is probably like the biggest hit to Italian since Chris Pratt played Mario on the Mario Brothers. Like I'm so horrified that he's Italian. I think the whole Republican Party really right now, their strategy has been a lot of like schoolyard bullying and like yelling at each other and fighting. So it's not surprising that he's nose to nose with Newsom, who loves the term "clean his clock," which I feel like he just recently has done. Some of Newsom's incredible. Stats about how most Floridians are moving to Florida, things that are like being ignored by that. But being a person who's half the time a Floridian, I know that word on the street is DeSantis is losing favor. Like a lot of the people who I saw were like hardcore Trumpers in the beginning on Facebook and doing all of these things, sort of supporting DeSantis in the beginning of his reign when he was doing things like fixing toll things. And making it less money when you go to work for using tolls, things that Floridians loved. Now it's kind of getting out of hand with the "Don't Say Gay" bill and a lot of this stuff with him wanting to remove woke culture, which really just means being aware of people and what's happening around them. I think that Florida's a big state, and the farmers may have some more of the electoral votes, but I really think that they're not thinking about the people that live on the coastlines that are, for the most part, pretty good humans, and I'm really not going to stand for some of his evil rhetoric.
Yeah, and I'm very glad that you brought that up too. We don't have time to dive into it, but maybe at some point on the show we will again. Ron DeSantis is this anti-woke crusader or whatever, but he wasn't always. Like early on as governor, he tried to he pitched himself as, I'm a more moderate person. I do bipartisan stuff. And he kind of needed to do that because he got into office very narrowly. And so he was doing like you're laying out, things that are designed to appeal to the right, but also to Democrats. And he was widely popular. Even a good number of Democrats liked him. And then with Trump, and especially into the pandemic, he appeared to discover, no, you know what, I can go all in on the right, culture war stuff. Then I don't have to do anything that risks the donors having an issue with it. It's all super easy stuff that doesn't challenge accumulated wealth or anything like that, the elite class. And he's really reinvented himself, so much so that it's easy to forget that there used to be other DeSantises. As Trump loves to point out, back in the day, he considered himself to be kind of like a Paul Ryan style Republican. And so he's just kept reinventing himself. Someday he'll choose one that isn't the worst. But anyway, Larry Hogan pointed out a good number of problems for Ron DeSantis, but we've got some new ones too. And once again, Ron DeSantis is sort of teeing himself up to look like he sent out a fundraising email just yesterday accusing President Joe Biden of being an out of touch executive. So that might or might not be true. We can certainly have a debate about that. But it also came 1 hour after the Washington Post reported that he and his wife have flown on private jets funded by wealthy donors at least a dozen times. And that isn't necessarily the worst bit of news in the area of corruption that we're gonna be covering. First of all, bear in mind that it's good that we have this information. Getting this sort of information in the future might be more difficult because remember, DeSantis has signed bills that have really shielded him from scrutiny. So information about past and future travels from journalists won't be able to find that, political opponents, people who visit the governor's mansion now being shielded. So a lot of legislation being passed specifically to advantage Ron DeSantis, but not quickly enough for him to have avoided us finding out that one of his donors supplied a golf simulator to his cabana. And look, no golf simulator seems cheap, but these in particular, very expensive. About golf simulators that require installation, like a team comes in and installs them, start at $27,500, and they can run up to and past $69,500. So these are very hoity-toity little toys indeed, and his donors are giving them. It would be one thing if he was blowing his money on it, but a donor to give you something worth like a Mercedes. I don't know, if you're gonna continue to pitch yourself as some sort of like warrior against the elites, I think you're gonna have to do more than just insult Disney to overcome these sorts of stories.
I also love the fact that he got married at Disney. Like, like to me, there's a lot of things about him that I think when you start to peel back the onion layers, the onion looks rotten. I'm not actually a very big fan. I was thinking about the Anita Bryant campaign, the Save the Children campaign in the 70s, and how Florida was such a huge crusader against basically don't say gay then. And it's so interesting how applicable that is to today's fight of what we're going through, especially with the trans community, how they've just used the same rhetoric for homophobia against transphobia. I think people don't want to stand for it. People want to educate their own children. They have family members who might be LGBTQ. They have family members that might be people of color or are people of color themselves, and want their children to be educated. So the thing that we have now that 1977 didn't have is the internet. There's no way you're going to stop this new generation from learning and from finding out what the truth of the matter is and how people are treated unfairly. And I think that's his biggest opponent is the truth.
Yeah, and I think that sort of culture war still works for a lot of older people and some young people, but I do feel like it's a bad long-term strategy. I don't think that there's gonna be a huge amount of people that are working their way up through high school and college right now that are gonna feel like this is all the politics should be about, is trying to annihilate the LGBTQ community. But that's the gamble that they're making. I'm sure that if there was a caravan working its way up through Mexico, they'd talk about that instead. But in the absence of that, I mean, what are you gonna talk about? Like retirement and housing prices and health insurance and the cost of college? Nah, nobody's got time for that. But anyway, I implied at the outset of this show that we have good news and bad news. So we started with the bad news, but let's talk about the good news. Not everything looking so bad for Ron DeSantis. While Trump is heralding the new charges against him as good news, and certainly in terms of fundraising, that's the case. Trump has raised like $6 million. It does appear to at least temporarily have hurt him just a bit in national polls. So Trump is still leading. He's got 59% among Republican primary votes. DeSantis is down at 21. So let's not go crazy with the good news, but Trump's support is down 3 points. DeSantis is up 5 points. Nobody else really matters in this. Mike Pence has 6% or whatever. But that does indicate that things have shifted a little bit. And Trump's support among Republicans and Republican leading independents has dipped 6 points just since he was indicted. So that's in a CNN poll. So it does indicate that maybe it's getting through to a few people. But the issue is that there's no amount of charges, Daniel, against Trump that's going to give DeSantis charisma or a likable personality or the ability.
There's zero likable personality. I was looking at all of the potential Republican candidates, and I was like, I hate them all. Like it's literally like GI Joe and Cobra. Like I'm like you can just like it's just all these evil people to choose from. Like I think that really what people like about Trump is he's flashy, he's loud. He's funny in a lot of ways sometimes when using some methods or something like that. And DeSantis doesn't have any of that charisma whatsoever. Like, I don't know how he's going to try to pull it off, just being like this wet spaghetti mop.
Yeah, 100%. Look, people say that he's like trying to use his wife to make up for some of his charisma, like lack. He needs to double down on that. He needs to have her debate for him. She should be running, actually. She should be running for president. That would probably be a better strategy. But here is the thing, the primary stuff, that's the important immediate stuff for Ron DeSantis. But here is kind of the funny stuff about what polling is showing right now. Ron DeSantis needs to get through Trump to have a chance against Biden. But were he to do that, as of right now, it actually seems like that would be really good for the Republicans, because we've got some new, albeit not the biggest pollsters in the country, but specific like contested battleground state polling. And if you take a look at this, when you look at Pennsylvania, DeSantis versus Trump is a major difference. It's like a 6-point swing between those two candidates in the favor of DeSantis against Biden. Arizona is a 9-point swing. Georgia's a 6-point swing. These are all states that Joe Biden won in 2020 that he almost certainly needs to win in 2024. And it's really looking like if the Republicans want to have a chance of winning, they would be, at least as of right now, way better off if they chose Ron DeSantis. And that kind of thing can be lost in these national polls, where Trump might be doing better nationally than Ron DeSantis, but that's not how elections are actually won. So I don't know, like I just imagine Trump seeing this and like stewing in it. But then also Ron DeSantis has got to be pretty frustrated because that doesn't actually help him get to the point of running in the general.
Yeah, I think, it's really one of those things that time's gonna tell. Like there's gonna be either some big thing that pushes one of them forward or some big gaffe that is just gonna, I hope they just cancel each other out at the end of the day.
Yeah, maybe. Well, that said, why don't we move to a little bit of fun? Whenever we're ready, we can jump into this video.
Many say don't punch down when talking about people like Chris Sununu or Sloppy Chris Christie or Ada Hutchinson. I call him Ada, not Asa, because of certain reasons. Or others, but sometimes it's necessary to talk badly about those that for no reason other than politics speak badly about you. Otherwise, the people that love you don't know whether or not they're for real. Are they saying the truth? They're not. So sometimes you have to punch down and you have to say what's happening. Otherwise, they won't understand. It's not fair to them. You have to put them in proper perspective, these bad people. You have to put them in their place.
There's a lot of weird Trump videos that we talked about. That was a weird one, Daniel. What do you think?
My brain is really still having a hard time wrapping around like what he's trying to say. Like, I guess he's like defending his abusive language towards other people, which is like, what else are you gonna do? You have to defend it or stop it. Like, so you've got to kind of stand behind it. But he's like, you need to tell people that it's okay to make fun of people, otherwise they don't know they love you. I'm like, what are you talking? Like, what? It's like, okay, Grandpa. I'm gonna like, I don't really understand like a lot of what he's trying to get across, but I don't think it's really professional. It's like the best word to say to like be slamming your opponent so childishly when we're just trying to get facts out there. I prefer a stats, over a roast. I don't know what else to call it.
Insults.
It's like this mudslinging that he tries to do all the time. But people seem to respond to it. That's what his core group of people like about him. They're the bullies on the playground. I feel like a lot of them anyway. At least the people from my high school who ended up being Trumpers are the ones that you're like, of course they are. Like it was those same people that were like, being bullies and like eating lizards on the football field, like it's just like doing crazy stuff that you're like, what are you doing? So I think this is another example of I'm rubber, you're glue. Whatever you say bounces off of me and sticks to you. It only just shows his character as a man and as a politician and as a world leader. Like if he's gonna be slamming people and calling them weird names and stuff like that, I think that's just a big character flaw for me as far as how I would want my leader to be.
Yeah, his character, and also, in that many people love him, love what he's doing, will love that video. It reflects on their character as well. By the way, I just want to quickly say, so he says sloppy Chris Christie. Okay, we all get where he's going with that. It's super weird to me that when he's routinely mocking people for being overweight, the literally millions of Trump fans who are overweight seem to have no problem with that. But I've accepted it. They don't see that as a weird thing. Okay, that's fine. But Ada rather than Asa Hutchinson, I call him that for certain reasons. Could we pause for a second? What are the reasons?
Is this some weird like transphobic kind of like, or whatever? I don't know what it is. It's just some weird kind of misogynistic, transphobic kind of messaging. I think it's
Okay, so Ada is supposed to be like a girl's name, so he's calling this grown man a girl. That's what's going on?
Because the grown man approved trans legislation. So it's like his way of just sort of like mudslinging about, again, humanity. Did anyone think about including humanity in this at all? Like, aren't we supposed to be America? Like, isn't that what we're about? Or supposedly, I don't know, or what I was taught. I'm trying to figure it out myself, because where we're headed is a scary place sometimes when these are, that's our former president.
Yeah.
It's a little bizarre.
Yeah. And look, and I'll end with saying, his explanation, like there is a version of what he said that maybe makes sense, which is, look, I understand that like really like tearing a hole into someone who's at 2% might seem weird, but if they're telling specific lies, I need to point out those lies, because otherwise they could just spread unchallenged. Like that's a rational way to explain what he's saying, but he's not pointing to specific lies. And the way that he talked about the obligation that he feels towards his audience is insanely patronizing and condescending. Like he was talking about the people that like him as if they were like dim-witted 5-year-olds. Like if I don't do it, they won't know. If they love you, if they should, what are you talking about? Like he seems to have no respect for them. And I believe that that's an accurate reflection of the way that he thinks about those people. It's just added to the pile of things that if you were a Trump fan, this should deeply bother you, but for some reason doesn't. And I will just really fast, let me just say, Ron DeSantis needs to get a little bit of that. The ability for his massive faults to automatically be apologized for by his base. Trump has that better than anyone else in history.
I think that's what DeSantis is shooting for, especially with like some of his like slings and arrows against Gavin Newsom, like just trying so hard to get into the mudslinging game, because that seems to be what the fan base wants. They all want to get up on the steel cage and go fight, And so I think he's trying to stir that up, but it's weak sauce. It's weak sauce. And it's got a lot of the energy of like when you ask your parents something and you really want to know the information, like because I said so. It's like it's got a lot of because I said so to it that I think is not enough maybe for this time around for Trump. I think some of his supporters are going to start to question that kind of behavior.
Yeah, I would love to believe that. I hope that there's evidence to that effect. Anyway, with that said, we do need to take the first break of our show, but everyone buckle up because we got a lot to get to. We'll see you on the other side of this. Okay, buddy, let's see what's going on out there. So first of all, the IT Dragon had said in Twitch, John, his ADA reference is referring to the Disability Association. It's a deep cut to let us all know he still hates disabled people. Yeah, I get that it is that acronym, but why him in particular? Like I looked it up, like does he use a wheelchair? I don't believe that he does. Like, why would he be doing that? That's such a random, now that doesn't mean that it's not true. He does random irrational things constantly, but I think for me in evaluating weird Trump things, I always go with the more childish thing. A reference to the acronym for a disability association requires a functioning brain, I think. Whereas just saying, ha, it's a girl's name, that seems more at his intellectual level, I think.
I think you got that spot on. It's totally his intellectual level. That's exactly what the level of field that he's playing at.
But I will say to the IT Dragon, yeah, he has viciously insulted disabled people, so you're not wrong about what he feels. But yeah. Okay, Savage Bear has been a member for 7 months on YouTube, says, is that John or James Bond? Hey, I can wear a tie from time to time. I used to do it pre-pandemic, and every once in a while I do again. Anyway, May Dragon, member for 19 months, says, Trump just forgot the dude's name. Hell, I've already forgotten his name. It's as simple as that. That may be the even more childish thing, except that in this case, he said the correct name. He just didn't say it right first. I think it's an impulse where giving someone a fake name is one of the first insulting things that a kid does, because they think their name is important. So I can make up a name for you, and then that's the ultimate insult. It's just that he refuses to call people by their regular name. If I was Brett Baer, by the way, in the interview, I don't know if you saw his interview where he kept calling him Ron DeSantis. If I was Brett Baer, I would have been like, look, I'm gonna be real with you. Until you say his name correctly, we're pausing the interview. I'll just sit here and look at you until you say the name correctly. Like I feel like sometimes you need to take a stronger hand with kids when they get out of line. Anyway, okay, let's see. Matt Gates on a white Ford Bronco says in a super chat, Daniel would have been the perfect host to discuss the MTG Boebert story. Well, we are going to be talking about the updates on that story, so you'll get your wish, don't worry. Okay, Swedane Dragon gifted 10 memberships over on YouTube. Thank you very much for that. Very nice thing for you to do. The members get access to bonus content and the badge and emojis and a colored name in the chat and all that. But bear in mind, today is the special day wherein Tier 3 members get access to a members hangout that we do 30 minutes after the show. So we do that every month. It'll be coming up later on today. So hope to see a bunch of you there. Sophie Shipper, I apologize for what I just did to your name, says if they can come for Trump, then they can come for any ex-FBI agent with classified documents stored in the bathroom. Yeah, Daniel, I don't know if you saw it, but there was an ex-FBI analyst who was just sentenced to prison for keeping classified documents at their residence, including in the bathroom. So like almost the exact same thing as Trump.
I don't really understand what all of this stuff with keeping classified documents in the bathroom. Like, I mean, even before the internet, all I did was read the back of a bottle of Pert Plus. Like, there's plenty of other reading material, like in the bathroom. We don't have to go there.
100%. And for many people, their phone. I find that to be a gross habit, but lots of people do. Man, walking into like a men's bathroom and seeing guys at the urinal on their phone, I just think maybe it's an addiction at that point.
Or when people are like full on responding on TikTok and stuff, and you could tell they're sitting on the toilet. I'm like,
oh no, I don't like it. I don't like it.
That happens all the time, and I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah, just. If you're listening to the podcast, you're not gonna know what we're talking about. But finish on the toilet and then make your TikTok. That's my general advice to everyone in all walks of life. Okay, with that said, we're gonna move on to other domestic news, starting with this.
Adam Schiff lied to the American people by leading the fake Russian witch hunt against President Trump. He weaponized the House Intelligence Committee to abuse all principles of due process and perpetuate the lies of Russia collusion.
So if you want to have an idea of the intellectual merit and substance to the efforts to censure Adam Schiff, you need only know that Marjorie Greene was a big vocal part of it. But this time it succeeded. The House has successfully censured Representative Adam Schiff. The vote passed on party line, 213 to 209. All 5 Republican members of the House Ethics Panel who are going to be doing the further investigation, they voted present. It's probably a thing where that's implying that they'll be objective or whatever. But they also knew that the measure was going to pass either way. So anyway, it says that Schiff, quote, misled the American people and brought disrepute upon the House of Representatives for his handling of the Trump-Russia investigation. And it tells the House Ethics Committee that you need to investigate him. Now, this is not exactly the same as the effort to censure him from a week or two ago. That, which was sponsored by Representative Anna Paulina Luna, also included a $16 million fine, and enough Republicans voted against that when they brought it back, they had to get rid of the fine. And it is not difficult to figure out why some Republicans were against that. Republicans are perfectly happy now that you can just censure people over BS. It used to be a very significant thing that was only taken, as the last extreme. Now it's gonna be casual, they don't mind that. But the idea that if they get into the minority, they could be fined for millions of dollars probably doesn't sit well with them. So that was a line that they did not want to cross. And by the way, this did tend to be a rare thing in the past. The last time it happened was in 2021. That was when Democrats reprimanded Paul Gosar for posting that video of him and Marjorie Greene murdering AOC and Joe Biden. So just to give you an idea of the different standards, they don't like the investigation that Schiff did, so he gets censured. They didn't think that Paul Gosar should be reprimanded for making a video of him murdering his political opponents. And only 25 House members have ever been censured. I don't know the content of all of them. I would imagine this ranks pretty low in terms of the substance behind it, but what do you think, Daniel?
I think that whenever just a white person in general is using the term witch hunt, I always get like a little bit of like already a disdain for whatever they're gonna speak to, because they don't have anything that relates to them like a lynch mob. Like they have to use that term, and I think it's always like some sort red herring, trying to get us away from what the actual thing at hand is here. And pretty much anything Marjorie Taylor Greene does gives me agita. So at this point, I mean, you just have to sit back and watch sometimes and just wonder if it'll sort itself out, because it's disheartening.
Yeah. By the way, I'm not saying that I think that everything that Schiff did was awesome, or that Schiff is beyond reproach. He'd never lie or exaggerate. I'm not saying that. I have no personal loyalty to Adam Schiff, but it seems noteworthy that they're like, you know what? Let's pause briefly from our never-ending work to investigate Joe Biden and Hunter Biden and all that. And we're looking for any sort of conspiracy theory that we can to say, how dare you do something that we think was inaccurate in terms of investigation? You guys are going full steam ahead against the Biden family. Like you're trying to get Hunter Biden's dick pics. Like seriously, you think that Adam Schiff is the problem here? It's all political. And the response also will be political. Let's first give Adam Schiff an opportunity to respond.
To my Republican colleagues who introduced this resolution, I thank you. You honor me with your enmity. You flatter me with this falsehood. You who are the authors of a big lie about the last election must condemn the truth tellers, and I stand proudly before you. Your words tell me that I have been effective in the defense of our democracy, and I am grateful. And yet this false and defamatory resolution comes at a considerable cost to the country and to the Congress.
Yeah, look, he's gonna be defensive. I don't think that he necessarily cares, in part because the Republicans have made it such an obviously partisan thing that I don't think that it stings the way that it used to. And we're in such partisan times that honestly, it might even help him. He's certainly acting as if he thinks that it will. He's fundraising off of it. He sent out nearly 20 fundraising emails that have mentioned the effort to censure him since Anna Paulina Luna first introduced her version back on May 24th. And he sent out tweets. You can see here in the lead up to this effort to do it. He likely will raise a bunch of money. Like there's a case to be made that them censuring him might help elevate him in his Senate race that he's in right now.
Isn't that politics though? It's like if you can't beat him, join him. Like, just turn it into a positive. Razzle dazzle him, kid. Just throw a little glitter on it, honey. Like, what else are you gonna do?
And it might work. It might work. And honestly,
it just might.
What's that?
I said it just might.
It just might. And I don't know if they're necessarily thinking about that, but if they are, well, look, they hate Adam Schiff, performatively. He's critical of Trump. They don't like that. But would they, if it was up to the Republicans, would they have Adam Schiff versus one of the more progressive challengers for that Senate seat? That might not be as anti-Trump on a regular basis, but on economic policy would be more progressive. I feel like the Republicans don't necessarily mind the idea that this might give Schiff a boost. And plenty of people won't. Schiff is popular in California. That's why he's considered the front runner. But it's just interesting the way these things work out in the modern era. Anyway, with that said, why don't we move on to very different news? Talking about a progressive, actually. Representative Ayanna Pressely has introduced a new bill to expand access to abortion in terms of funding, travel expenses, those sorts of things. And we want to give you all of that information. So the bill calls for coverage of accrued costs, including travel, lost wages, and boost federal spending in abortion training, research, outright, and doula care. So on the demand side, it helps people to get to places that have laws that are grounded in our century. Understanding also that those trips can be expensive, they can be time consuming. You might have to stay in a different state for a day or two. You might have to miss a day or more of work. And so those are costs that have now been put on people's backs thanks to these anti-abortion laws. And also expanding access to the training, those sorts of things makes it a little bit easier for providers to open up in these areas, perhaps near state borders, making the trips less expensive. And in announcing this, Representative Pressely had this to say: "This week marks 1 year since the Supreme Court overturned the will of the people and obliterated the right to abortion care across our nation." And that is definitely the case. And a lot has happened, by the way, since then. 14 states now outlaw abortion, 11 having bans without exceptions for rape or incest. Although I'm not gonna miss an opportunity to point out that even the states that do have those exceptions, that does not necessarily mean what they would have you believe. Having to convince a Republican judge or a Republican doctor or whatever that you should be a part of that exception is not an automatic thing. It can be time consuming, it can be highly embarrassing and stigmatizing. And lots of doctors are terrified of running afoul of the law, so they won't necessarily provide the care even if technically the exceptions exist. And all of this, by the way, without the Republicans ever once having gotten the country on their side on this issue. It was overturned with the majority of people believing that abortion access should be maintained. And even in some red states where they've tried to do ballot measures, like in Kansas, they have lost. And so I know it's such a weird disconnect, Daniel, from public opinion and what some of these state legislatures in the most red states are doing. But it is good to see some politicians not forgetting about this issue a year out. What do you think?
I definitely think it's really important that politicians don't forget about it. This is something that I think is pertinent to our country. To a lot of people need abortion services for whatever reason, and I personally think that people should have that choice, and so it's nice to see that there are some politicians that are not letting it slide. Even though it's now a bigger battle, being a national battle too. But making it more accessible and making it legal for people, I think, is only a good thing. I hope that more people can follow this kind of an example and try to help rectify this horrible injustice that's happening right now.
Yeah, I mean, of course, we should bear in mind that she's in the House, Democrats are in the minority, so basically no chance of it passing, and nothing can get done in the Senate. So unlikely that would pass either. Still,
I still think it's important historically that these things are going on record, that people were like opposing it, that there was an opponent of it. I mean, I think it only inspires more people to try to find ways to rectify this.
I agree. Well, let's move to a sort of related issue. Generally, when you hear about the topic of religion, when it comes to abortion rights, it's usually religious conservatives saying that it should be outlawed, either not connecting it to their religion, but it's influencing it, or some directly saying that these are violations of their religious rights. Now, I'm not going to re-adjudicate what the Bible actually says about abortion, but it's fascinating stuff and you should read up on it. But we've actually got sort of an inversion of that. We have some religious people of a variety of different religions saying that bans on abortion actually violate their religious rights, which I think is fascinating. So we've got a lawsuit in Missouri that is saying that elevating a particular Christian denomination's view on abortion blurs the line between church and state. And they specifically are saying that there's this coalition between not just Christians of other denominations, but also Jewish individuals, some Satanists as well, that are coming together on this. And so I love to see them working together. You also have in Indiana, a number of different religious individuals and organizations are suing over the state's near total abortion ban. The interesting thing there is they say that it violates the Religious Freedom Restoration Act that was signed into law back in 2015 by then Governor Mike Pence. So obviously the law was signed by Mike Pence, supported by conservative Christians for very different reasons. They were not looking to enshrine access to abortion care. But it is interesting that they could have set a precedent where that might be able to work. Daniel, I have no idea if these or other lawsuits of this type will be successful, but I do like that they are sort of flipping how we normally think of religious activists in this area. What do you make of it? I know you do a podcast about religion.
Yeah, I have a podcast called Yass Jesus, which is look at religion through the LGBTQ lens. I do think that Mike Pence historically in his state made a lot of things that were religious-based decisions that caused a lot of chaos, including a gigantic HIV outbreak and a bunch of other things during his term there. I feel like It's important to listen to everybody. The whole thing is we have to coexist. America is a melting pot, and a lot of these so-called Christians, on our show we call them Christians with a hard R, like Christians, these Christians with a hard R, and the hard R is Republican usually. Basically, want to speak for all of us, and they're speaking on a level of hate. I mean, they recently, even with the LA Dodgers fiasco with the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, an amazing community service organization where, yes, they dress as like kind of clownish nuns, but they have done so much community service, saved so many lives, and so many things in their community were being honored by the Dodgers. And then there was this huge uproar by the Catholic Church saying that they mock nuns, and they had like thousands of people show up at the Dodger Stadium and protest. When was the last time you saw thousands of Catholics like protesting, clergy people who are accused of molesting children, or so many other instances where or child hunger or homelessness or any other kind of thing that's actually helping or saving children? A lot of this stuff is politicized, and a lot of these churches and organizations own a lot of real estate. I think the Catholic Church is the #1 real estate holder in the world. It's kind of like if they were not tax exempt, they could solve world hunger. So I think a lot of the times, if they were really trying to do things that were helping the community, then I could see these arguments being valid. But a lot of times they are just politicized arguments that are just used again for fundraising and partnerships with their ally politicians who are also against a lot of important things that could actually help children.
Yeah, no, I think that you're totally right to point out that hypocrisy. I've always felt, like I repeatedly say on the show, like even just cynically for pragmatism, you would think that some of these people that hold up their religious identification as, why they're doing things like trying to outlaw like abortion, those sorts of things. Why wouldn't you also just do a little bit of stuff to like help kids that are like 3-year-olds or whatever, like get access to food, or why not do that sort of stuff, even if just in a cynical attempt to like burnish your credentials? Why wouldn't you do that? But very often, no. It's like you say, it's protesting against this organization or whatever. It's so like hostile rather than just helpful, and I don't understand.
It's a complete enigma to me. The same hard R Christians that are praying for all these unwanted children in the world are then voting against gay adoption. It's like, okay, like who are you actually trying to save? What are you actually trying to do? I think a lot of the problem with it is those religions, they rely too much on their religious leaders than actually talking to God themselves. I think a lot of them just listen to these people who are in charge of these mega churches and in charge of, and the Vatican, who lay down a lot of rules and say, don't question it, this is how it is. And they're stuck in that, and they think they're honoring God by doing that. But I think if they truly read the Bible and or truly were practicing in their religion, that they would have a little bit more heart and humanity.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna see how these state level challenges play out. There's so many cases that are working their way up through a number of different states. This is like one subset of it. We will see if this strategy is more successful in winning over some of the the conservative Christian members of the SCOTUS. I have a feeling that they will figure out a way around this, maintaining religious freedoms where it's advantageous to the most common religion in the country, and probably figure out a way not to have to listen to them. But we'll see. We'll be tracking it. For now, though, we're gonna take a break. When we come back, lots more to talk about. Don't go anywhere. Okay, everybody, welcome. Let's see what y'all are talking about out there. We're gonna jump to Twitch first. Let's see. Den Hitchhiking Dragon says, I think this was in response to us listing your past work, says, I actually remember Daniel best from Conviction.
My role on ABC's Conviction.
That's awesome. Yeah, Maple Syrup Dragon has been here for 25 months. Thank you, Maple Syrup Dragon, much appreciated. Only One Alone's been here for 17. Thank you. 17 months as a subscriber, says they've been watching for 5 years. Thank you so much. Granny Dragon's been here for 32 months, love it. Muad'Dib says he doesn't even go here. I get the reference.
I totally do go here.
PDX Bellasaurus here for 29 months, thank you. Conservative Wambulance, been here for 26. Thank you so much. Let's see, AKA Dom G, 21 says YOLO. I guess if you do only live once, you should probably pay attention to what's going on. So I appreciate you being in the audience and caring about what goes on in the news. Irie Man gifted a sub, so nice of you. Thank you to all of you being such awesome ambassadors out there. Kyle is responding to the conversation we had at the close of our last social break and says, John, I've got even worse. I was in a bathroom and someone came into a stall next to me, sat down and started a job interview. This was before Zoom really took off, so it was just a phone with no video, but still the background noise. You definitely should not get whatever job you're interviewing for if I hear a toilet flush. That is too much. How busy are you?
What did you think of that last interviewee? He was full of hot air, that guy. I don't know.
Thank you. Yeah, it's like where are you located, Daniel? Actually,
I'm in LA.
Oh, you are in LA. Okay, I should have noticed that.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was Louisiana. But anyway, so I live in LA too, and I'm sure you are well aware that people drive crazy, and I think it's gotten worse since the pandemic. I don't know. What do you think?
For sure. Are you kidding me? I'm like constantly dodging Mr. Magoo's everywhere out there. It's like a little crazy.
Like the people who are like there's a mile long line. They're like, no, I'm just gonna drive on the wrong side of the street for a
And
mile.
now you know I have a Prius and they stole the catalytic converter for my Prius.
That sucks. That happens a lot.
That's a big California moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, the reason I bring this up is what some people don't know about LA is everyone in LA is the most important person. Their plans are the most important. What they have going on is very, very important. So important that they couldn't have just left a few minutes early to go where they need to go. It's like the person in the toilet thing. Like you put yourselves in these positions to do these terrible, risky things. Just plan ahead, buddy. Anyway.
One of the things I always tell people is wear mirrored glasses because everyone in LA loves talking to themselves. They like to look at their reflection. They're full of attention.
100% I like that. Hunger Games been here for 26 months says 26 months, where's the time go? Titan submarine might have crashed right next to the Titanic according to the Coast Guard. Yeah, so we were at that point where we were past when the oxygen is supposed to last or whatever. It's obviously, a sad story. It's a complex story in a variety of ways. And I think there's a lot of commentary to be had about the role of the media and these sorts of things. But it is sad, feel bad for the families and friends of those who they're now even more sure probably were lost. And so very sad. I'd read something about a debris field being found, no confirmation on if it was actually from that. It could be from a variety of different
Also,
things.
It's kind of crazy the media coverage of this and thinking about how many refugees have died like in the ocean this year alone. So, and 100%. The coverage of that is lacking.
100%, yeah. Okay, everybody, Jasper Katz is saying apparently a piece of the sub was found. Yeah, I hadn't seen that. Thank you for the update. I wonder if they'd be able to confirm it so immediately that that's actually what it's from. And also why, if the sub had failed, I had been led to believe that that the pieces would not resurface. But anyway, we're all finding out a lot about submersibles this week. A tragedy, regardless. With that said, let's jump into our last two topics to close out this first hour of the show. Members of a sorority in Wyoming, Kappa Kappa Gamma specifically, are suing over the fact that the University of Wyoming chapter admitted transgender women, or one woman specifically, to the sorority, and they're not happy about it. But a court is saying that they are not going to interfere with the admittance policy of the sorority. That does not mean these sorts of challenges are done, but it is fascinating that in this case, they have ruled in favor not technically of the transgender woman, but of the sorority to decide what its policies for admittance are. There's a few interesting wrinkles to this case, though, that I think that we should dive into. So, first of all, originally 6 of the 7 women had multiple times been barred from doing this lawsuit because they wanted to do it anonymously. They were stopped from doing that and finally decided, okay, I guess we'll do it with our names attached to it. And I think that there's some place in the law for anonymous lawsuits, but I feel like for this sort of thing, I feel like you should be willing to put your name and your face to it. If you are saying that a person should be banned What do you think, Daniel? Immediately,
it's definitely giving like a bunch of us have talked, and I'm not gonna name any names, but we just don't like want you in our sorority anymore. Like it's giving that energy.
Yeah. Look, sorry, continue.
No, if you're gonna have some sort of strong opinion on something, I say be strong about your opinion. Like, trying to do something like I'm gonna put it in the suggestion box just isn't gonna cut it when you're talking about altering somebody's life plans.
Yeah. Now look, I don't know these individuals. I don't know the apparently unnamed transgender woman that they're trying to ban from it. They say that Artemis Langford is the transgender woman. Apologies. They say that Artemis's presence made some members of the sorority uncomfortable. Langford would sit on a couch for hours while, quote, staring at them without talking. If that claim is true, then I can understand how that would make you uncomfortable. Why that would mean that all transgender people should be banned from being a part of the sorority seems like that's going a bit far.
Also, like if that's the case, when you were pledging, didn't you notice some sort of like maybe personality flaws? Like I kind of feel like isn't that the time to like feel out your sisters or like your frat brothers and like see if they fit in with your group? Like if Artemis was inducted into the sorority and they said, hey, come be our sorority sister. You've got the vibes, you did whatever the rush stuff was, you've met all the requirements. And then there's like a group of people who are sitting there going, she's staring at us. Like, well, like, are you engaging? Like, like, is this, there's a lot of questions that just that comment alone brings up to me. Oh, she was sitting on the couch and staring at us. It sounds exactly like something that somebody that was mean girling somebody would say about somebody who is being afraid to like engage with somebody that was staring at them.
Yeah, maybe Artemis didn't feel comfortable talking because maybe you all were staring at Artemis. We don't know. We honestly don't know. And that at the end of the day is not even what the judge's decision sort of hinges on. But here is some excerpts from the motion to dismiss that I do think are interesting. The central issue of this case is simple. Do the plaintiffs have a legal right to be in a sorority that excludes transgender women? They do not. This policy, by the way, has been around since 2015. Which I'm actually surprised by, And I also do have to remind myself that while, huge sections of the country have never been particularly inviting or welcoming to members of the LGBTQ community, the time that we're in now is particularly aggressive. Like, I don't feel like against transgender people specifically, there was tons of ignorance and probably tons of stigma, from many people. But it wasn't like a constant topic of conversation on the right on a day-to-day basis constantly. And so it's hard to forget that there were places where they were just more inviting, more welcoming back in 2015 than they are right now.
I heard somebody said something like, do you remember those 6 or 7 years where it was okay to be LGBTQ? Like there was like a little sweet spot where like everything was like chill for like a minute. And those chill days are over. They found a hot button topic now. Like this is something that they found that is rebel rousing their group to say, yeah, we agree with you. And probably gaslighting us from more important issues like gun control even. But I feel like it is a hot button topic of this election, whether we like it or not. And I think that I think this is one of those ones where you really want to be on the right side of history. Like time is only gonna make you look foolish if you're, following this awful plan to sort of eradicate transgender folks, like especially when there's the calls coming from inside the house and it's one of our own and it's like gay people who don't want the T to be part of the LGBT. But sorry, there is no LGBT without the T. Until our most marginalized members of the LGBTQ community are free and comfortable being who they are walking down the street, none of us are free.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously, look, if you disagree, you can say that. But also, we can point out that like it is very convenient for the right to have some individuals or organizations that they can hide behind to say, no, it's not about hating people or whatever. Look, even some gay organizations also think that there should be no rights whatsoever. Like the right is always going to jump on the opportunity to have that.
They immediately jump towards children. They say, oh, we don't want you to change our children or give them hormone blockers or blah, blah, blah. We're not trying to make trans children. We're trying to make trans children stay alive.
Yeah.
There's a difference. We're not trying to create anyone. We're trying to create a safe space for people. So I think that a lot of people who don't know a transgender person, or it's the same thing with queer people or gay people rather, in probably the 70s and 80s. If you didn't know one, you might have judged them based on what the media was saying during the AIDS crisis about gay people, and that's what we're dealing right now. This is literally a crisis for transgender folks.
100%. Yeah. Transgender kids exist whether you like it or not. I wish that was a truth that could be accepted by some people, but they are certainly resistant.
And that's on what? Period. And God. Like
100%. Yeah. 100%. Take it up with the creator of everything.
Yes, okay. And I love that word creator. That's what Pete Buttigieg said about Mike Pence saying something about, and creator's a buzzword. People who actually believe in God, like when you use words like creator, they're like, it's like it makes them listen. And I think that is exactly it. God doesn't make no mistakes. Transgender folks are fearfully and wonderfully made, and every hair on their head is counted.
Yeah. 100%. You know what? We're gonna play this last video actually because I want to give more time to our e-blocks. We're gonna wait. We're gonna throw that to the aftermath. So everybody definitely stick around if you're listening to the podcast. There's extra clips that come out every day on our YouTube channel. You should definitely go check it out. But for now, there are some who are not satisfied to just have a debate about whether transgender women should be allowed in sororities. They think that this is something beyond just what a person wants. This is a conspiracy. Take a look at this.
But what about the angle of the Wyoming Democrats? It makes me wonder whether this was like an inside job, like, hey, let's get in here.
Let's position this transgender person and
push
create
the
this narrative.
Narrative, their agenda into this sorority, expand the transgender agenda at that campus, but to your point, around the country as well, because you just keep going piece by piece, eventually try to get this to the Supreme Court. It just looks very political and strangely coincidental that this man, because that's what he is actually working for the Wyoming Democrats.
So it's very convenient that this person wants to be in a sorority. You know that like it becomes political when judges have to start weighing in on it, and they did that when people tried to ban Artemis from being there, not when Artemis got into the sorority. You guys made it a political thing. If you just shut up, then you just have a person in a sorority, and that would be that. My assumption would be, and obviously I don't speak for Artemis, I don't speak for anybody, but I assume that the agenda is being in the sorority. I think that that's the end goal. That's the end game of this thing, is just being a sorority girl, I think.
Or the greater agenda at large, staying alive and just being able to live a normal life. I'm working on this project, Prayers from a Drag Queen. It seems that everything that the hard R Christians have to say about us, there's never a prayer. Like it's always just them condemning us or standing outside with some hateful sign outside of an event. But a lot of the prayers, I ask people, what's queer joy, or what do you think that the LGBTQ community needs? And a great deal of people answer the same thing, and they said, just to be able to walk down the street, listen to music, hold my partner's hand, and be myself. Yeah. The big wish, the big prayer for the LGBTQ community right now is just to be able to breathe and be at ease.
100%, and it shouldn't be too much to ask. Okay, that's the end of the first hour, everyone. Thank you for watching. More to come in the aftermath. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Aftermath, everybody. John Iadarola still with Daniel. Daniel, great to have you here. Having a lot of fun. Thank you for sticking with the Aftermath.
Awesome to be here. I'm having a good time too.
Awesome. You know what? We're gonna jump into our stories in just a few. We're gonna have some fun. Meanwhile, it is coming up, everyone. So get ready for a little tour around the world, see what's going on in different countries. But first, Chase Essex sent a super chat saying, "Morning Dragons, celebrating my 36th trip around the sun with a couple cold ones, a breakfast pizza, and TDR, digging the Agent Smith look, Dragon Daddy." Thank you. A breakfast pizza. What's on a breakfast pizza?
I would say breakfast sausage, peppers, eggs, cheese.
An egg pizza. That does sound good. I might have to look into that. Okay, let's see. Purple Witch Dragon, member for 27 months, says, "When a rainbow appears in the sky, do haters consider God woke?" I don't know. I can't speak for the haters. Pitchforks Dragon, not feeling particularly charitable towards those lost on the submarine. Thank you for the super chat. Not gonna read the message, but anyway, yeah, it doesn't seem good in that area. It really does look like all aboard were lost. Very sad stuff. Okay, we're gonna jump into some lighter news. A little bit of a little personal fight. Why don't we jump into this? By now, you all certainly know that the Cold War between Marjorie Greene and Lord Boebert went hot this week when some spicy words were exchanged between them. In case you missed the video though, let's take a look at where this is all coming from. You can see right there, the two congresswomen talking. There are witnesses nearby. There's people who were listening to this conversation. You can see some reactions, facial reactions from Boebert, who is like playing it very coy and casual, leaning against the chair, but didn't seem to like what she was hearing. And I have to say, I understand why Boebert might not have liked this conversation. Say if you missed it, 3 sources say that Marjorie Greene referred to Congresswoman Boebert as a bitch. One source says a little bitch, which really just does seem way worse than just calling her a bitch. Well, I don't know why that is, but little bitch is like 5 times worse than just a bitch. Well,
it goes with that voice like, "You little," like it's like
yeah, it's like diminishing and kind of like trashy in comparison to just referring to one of your colleagues as a bitch.
I want to hear from the gentlewoman in the stripes. She's leaning in there. She has all the tea. Like you can tell she heard every word. You know, she's leaning in there. She's like creeping over. She's like, "I want to know what's going down." Yeah. Taking notes. That's the person you want to sit next to in the commissary.
It's recording for the TikTok. But anyway, look, that's their fight. You know, they're gonna have their fight. Boebert tried to end the conversation, apparently saying, "Okay, Marjorie, we're through." And as Boebert turned away, Greene apparently responded, "We were never together," which is so dramatic. Like, are you on a TV show? What are you talking about? We were never together.
We are like totally breaking up. We were like never dating.
I know. You can't fire me. I quit. It's got that energy. But anyway, all of that is old news. Well, here is the update. They are moving on from this fight in very different ways. So Lauren Boebert, who I don't normally think of as a person who takes the high road on a lot of things, she said, "Marjorie is not my enemy. I came here to protect our children and their posterity. Joe Biden and the Democrats are destroying our country." So there's some lies about caring about the kids or whatever. But she goes back to, "I'm not fighting with her. I hate mean old Joe." Okay. From the point of view of the Republican Party, that seems like the responsible thing to do, okay? Moving on from the personal back and forth and back to Joe Biden. That is not how Marjorie Greene is responding to it. So she apparently said that the Daily Beast article about this with the little bitch quote is, quote, "impressively accurate." So really wants credit for having called her a little bitch, whipping out the rare high price vocabulary words for it. Says, I have defended her when she's been attacked of Boebert. She and I have virtually the same voting record. We're both members of the House Freedom Caucus. We shouldn't be natural allies. I think she means we should be natural allies, but for some reason she has a great skill and talent for making most people here not like her. So Boebert's moving on. Marjorie Greene is doubling down and saying, oh, I don't like her. And you know what? Nobody else does. I have no idea if that's true or not. I don't particularly care. Their little, dueling of personalities isn't so important. But I do like to see fights between Republicans, especially with their narrow majority. So
I love the honesty. I love the honesty.
Yeah.
I do like I mean, it was a nice little reprieve from just constantly having, face palming all day. It was a good little giggle.
Yeah. Well, Greene had more to say because she is not ready to move on from this. And honestly, who's surprised by that? She is a person that thrives on conflict. Marjorie Boebert is kind of like a regular Republican who like secretly wishes that she was like a stand-up comic or something and she makes her little jokes. Marjorie Greene is a true believer and she will go down fighting. So she said, when asked whether there was any chance the two would reconcile, she said, absolutely not. She has genuinely been a nasty little bitch to me. She said this to Semaphore, which just, I don't think they've ever had a quote of she's been a nasty little bitch to me. I was sitting down and so I stood up and I said, I'm happy to clarify my public statements to your face. I told her exactly what I think about her. And then accused her of copying her with her attempt to impeach Joe Biden, saying she's just doing it for the fundraising. Well, that's the pot calling the kettle black. Both of their performative things done for fundraising. But anyway, like to double down and call her like there was some question, Daniel, about whether she had used the term little. She does not want there to be questions. She is going to anyone who will listen and calling her a little bitch.
Again, I think this goes back to Trump's punching down segment where it's just basically like this party really sees that their constituents are responding to mudslinging and responding to schoolyard bullying. So if she had an opportunity to get something in there, why not aim for it? I mean, she seems to, aim pretty low when it comes to choosing the high road.
Yeah, and look, I will say I have been critical of both of them on what they have tried to do in office, the statements that they have made. It is a weird position to be in where I kind of feel like I have to side with Boebert. She's trying to simmer things down and Greene's not going for it. So I think I'm team Boebert on this. I don't know. I don't know if you're ready to choose sides.
I don't know if I'm ready to just say the word team before either of those last names, but
I get what you're saying. I
it's a little triggering. It's a little triggering.
Yeah, they're both terrible. Remember, Boebert, she went around the country doing her like, people are going to college to take lesbian dance theory, and telling like Islamophobic stories about Ilhan Omar and everything. Like she's legitimately terrible. Let's not forget that.
Yeah.
Anyway, with that said, we move from one fight to a different sort of fight. Let's jump into this F block whenever we're ready. Some guy tweeted about how Facebook is gonna be rolling out a competitor to Twitter, and that has in some weird way gotten us to a point where we might see the first billionaire on billionaire steel cage match. Let's rewind and figure out how we got here. So first of all, there is something to what this guy tweeted. Apparently during an internal all hands meeting at Meta, it's Facebook, whatever. Chief Product Officer Chris Cox told employees that the company thinks creators want a version of Twitter that is quote sanely run, and that drew cheers. Mark Zuckerberg said, I've always thought that Twitter should have 1 billion people using it. And they have apparently been working on this competitor to Twitter since not long after Elon Musk took over the social media site. Musk, of course, isn't gonna like that. But you also have people on Twitter trying to stoke a little bit of conflict between the two. This one guy tweeted, better be careful, Elon Musk. I heard he, Mark Zuckerberg, does jujitsu now. To which Elon Musk said, I'm up for a cage match if he is, LOL. Which could have been the end of it, but was not, because Mark Zuckerberg posted a story on Instagram saying, send me location. I love that his response is what you would imagine a robot would send. It's literally just send coordinates.
Send location.
100%. And look, Elon Musk goes back to like joking about his move, the walrus, where he lies on his opponent and does nothing. It would probably be a perfectly fine joke coming from anyone other than Elon Musk, who there's literally nothing funny about. But if this happens, we need to bear in mind a few facts, Daniel. Musk is bigger than Zuckerberg, and he has bragged in the past about his youth fighting in real hardcore street fights in South Africa. I'm gonna need to see some receipts on that. But Zuckerberg, on the other hand, is younger and is an aspirational MMA fighter who is already winning jiu-jitsu tournaments. He also claims to have completed the grueling, quote, Murph challenge workout in just under 40 minutes. The jiu-jitsu thing is true. He won gold and silver in his first tournament up in Silicon Valley. And I looked up the Murph challenge because I was thinking, oh yeah, I bet Zuckerberg's in really good shape or whatever. Here is what the challenge is. It is a 1 mile run, 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 squats, and another 1 mile run while wearing a 20-pound vest.
Wow, I mean, my money is on Zuckerberg in this fight. If it was an actual physical fight, if we were doing like celebrity deathmatch, I'd be like, I could totally see him kicking Elon's ass. What I want to see is Lauren Boebert versus Marjorie Taylor Greene. That was, maybe we can get like a double bill header. I'll get the pay-per-view and popcorn at my house.
Nice. Let's set up, a full card. We can hash out these fights. The nephew of one of the people lost probably on the Titan submersible is I think feuding with Nicki Minaj. Maybe they could have some sort of wrestling.
Yeah, or maybe Artemis versus one of the sorority girls.
I like it.
Like transgender in sports. Like, see what happens.
We have a full card. But I will say, if Mark Zuckerberg, and look, I do not put lies past Mark Zuckerberg, if he successfully did that in 40 minutes. I would not want to be Elon Musk if he gets into that ring, because that seems difficult. And Elon Musk, let's just say I've seen photos of him topless. My money is gonna go on the Mickey Mouse robot from Facebook, personally. But anyway, the only reason I wanted to mention this is I think there should be more fights between billionaires. I think they should go in the steel cage, 2 men enter, 1 man leave, or maybe no men leave. We can just leave them in there. But anyway, I know what I want for Christmas. I just want this to happen, dear God.
There's a little bit on a tangent, but I did see a meme where it said that RoboCop, like they brought him back to life and made him go to work. Like it's kind of like, kind of reminds you a little bit of like a robo fighter.
Yeah, I could go for that. Anyway, we'll see. I doubt Elon Musk is constantly looking for like praise and approval. I don't think that he's gonna do this fight if it could result in him being made a fool of. So it's probably not gonna happen. Okay, with that said, are we ready to close this thing out, Ashley? Okay, it's time for news from around the world. And meanwhile in Ireland, noted musical star Taylor Swift, her plan to do 2 concerts in the country, generally seen as good news by her fans, of which she has many, not seen as good news by the Central Bank of Ireland. Why would they have an issue with this? Well, they're apparently familiar with the Beyonce effect. That's the effect wherein 2 of the American singer's concerts in Stockholm were blamed for a sudden rise in inflation in Sweden, thanks to soaring hotel and restaurant prices due to it. In response to that, chief economist of a bank said it's quite astonishing for a single event. We haven't seen this before, but we might see it again. Even economist Paul Krugman wrote, I wouldn't be surprised if Taylor Swift concerts are producing hotel and restaurant booms in the cities in which she performs. Live music is big business. And this is something that they are actually worrying about. The Minister for Public Expenditure in Ireland apparently said that they're expecting the hospitality sector to do the right thing by her fans. I don't know if that's sort of like a subtle hint that you better keep prices under control or something, but there's gonna be a lot of competition for these spots. And I could understand being worried that that could price people out or it could lead to short-term Swiftflation. What do you think, Daniel?
I ended up in Wisconsin during a big sports game, and sports hurts my head. But I had that same problem one time where I was like, oh, I'm just going a day early. It's not gonna be like that big of a deal. And there was like this huge rivalry sports game, and I had to pay like premium prices for like a Motel 6. So I literally know exactly what these people are afraid of. And let's not forget, a lot of Taylor Swift fans are kids. So like, and like young people, so it's gonna be hard on them. I could see this actually being like a real problem, especially in smaller territories.
Yeah, 100%. The Super Bowl was actually like within, like a mile or two of my house, so we considered renting out for it. We didn't end up doing it, but when the Olympics come to LA, maybe that's the sort of inflation I might get behind. But anyway, I like that Ireland is taking this seriously. There do need to be some protections. Actually, in some places, there just might be protections. And on that note, meanwhile in Brazil, a Brazilian lawmaker has introduced a bill nicknamed the Taylor Swift Law, specifically to address scalpers. See, many fans are saying that obtaining legal tickets to Taylor Swift's tours is effectively impossible because these scalpers are buying them up and making them too expensive. Well, this lawmaker is not messing around. The bill would criminalize scalping with penalties of up to 4 years in prison and fees up to 100 times the original ticket price. So I don't know which of those is worse. I imagine 4 years in Brazilian prison, probably not, a day at the park, but I would imagine this is gonna ward off some of the scalping. And if I'm a fan of Taylor Swift in Brazil, I would probably be happy that they're taking it seriously. It's not law yet, but what do you think, Daniel?
I think scalping has gotten out of hand, like as of late. I like what they do at Burning Man, where if you can't go, you just sell your tickets for what you bought them for, as like sort of like, goodwill and good vibes towards the next person or whatever. I mean, this like taking them and like triple, quadrupling the prices of things and making them unreachable, and buying, hundreds of tickets or whatever, dozens of tickets at a time. It is a little out of hand. I think some laws like this actually could be really useful.
Yeah, I would love to see that. Like I have season tickets to Angel City Football Club in LA, the women's soccer team, and sometimes I can't go, so we sell them. We sell them for like half of what they are otherwise going for because it's just to defray a little bit of the cost or whatever. It's not supposed to be a business. It's supposed to be a service that makes sure that seats are filled. That's it. Man, it's really time for America to do something about this, but maybe we can take some inspiration from Brazil. By the way, there's already been violence in some of the lines, like people having to queue for a really long time to get the tickets. So this could potentially avoid a lot of issues. And this is big. This is a big thing in the region. In Chile, by the way, the president has personally written to Taylor Swift asking her to perform in that country on a future date because they unfortunately were not chosen. And it turns out that there are other countries concerned about this as well. Meanwhile, in Malaysia, and actually all across Southeast Asia, a lot of fans of Taylor Swift are like, hey, what about us? Because a bunch of new international tour dates were announced in locations around the world. And there is Singapore. They were chosen for a concert, but multiple countries that are apparently filled with big Swifties not getting represented, and they feel like she might have forgotten them. They feel snubbed. Although some are actually blaming not Taylor Swift, but conservative politicians in their own country. One fan said, I don't think she'll come to Malaysia because her concert outfits won't be according to the stupid Malaysian concert rules. So apparently concerned that there might be some sort of conservative crackdown that's stopping some acts from getting there. But I do understand why she chose Singapore. Singapore apparently broke some kind of insane record for Coldplay ticket sales in one day. It's apparently a big destination for music shows. But Daniel, what do you think? Would you feel snubbed? I know Canadians are feeling snubbed right about now.
I mean, I get it, especially if some of them are based around some of the laws that they have in their country and some of the costumes that she's wearing, which is, part of it too. I think, like, I like all of it. I mean, I get it. I like, especially now. It reminds me of these drag bands, and there's all these drag tours, and they're just gonna have to skip some cities. Maybe Hairspray is not gonna play in Tennessee. Like, I don't know. Like, there's just certain things they're gonna have to make adjustments.
Yeah. 100%. And more dates could come, but she's already performing all over the place. It really just seems exhausting.
And she's kind of like, look what you made me do. Look what you made me do. Look what you made me do.
That's a reference, isn't it? I actually don't listen to much Taylor Swift.
Me either, but I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Yeah, by the way, this is mostly a joke. We were just astounded by how much international news there was of Taylor Swift in a single day. But that said, meanwhile in China, Taylor Swift, I'm joking. No, this isn't about that. Oh my
gosh, I was like, no.
Taylor Swift. There's a traditional dish that's received newfound international attention thanks to videos on sites like TikTok, and as well as its unique hook in this dish, in that it is what's considered the world's hardest dish because it's literally rocks. Take a look at this.
Video kayak gini sebenarnya cuma satu orang yang posting, tapi kemudian di-repost berkali-kali di media sosial dengan berbagai macam akun. Dia muncul juga berkali-kali di FYP gitu. Orang jadi bingung sebenarnya ini kenapa sih gitu. Ini adalah suotiu, masakan dari pedalaman Cina di mana mereka memasak ya batu.
Okay, so when you hear that a dish is rocks, river rocks specifically, that seems weird. But the more that I heard about it and read about it, the more fascinated I actually am in this. It's Sorority, I believe it's called. And the idea is that these are incredibly flavorful rocks. The rocks take on sort of the flavor of aquatic life over time. You combine that with a bunch of spices and things like that, and people suck on the rocks to get the flavor and then spit the rocks out. And this is actually a traditional dish with quite a bit of history to it. I've never heard of anything like this, but it actually makes a lot of sense. You get a lot of the flavor. It's not gonna be super filling, obviously. I could see this starting to spread. What do you think?
I could see this working. I've had a lot of dishes where I've like had an olive pit, or I've had some Asian soups where maybe it's like a harder vegetable or something that you just kind of like sucking the juice out of, whatever. I could see this really working. Apparently, it comes from fishermen, from like centuries old like fishermen, like being able to like make things that made them feel like they had a more hearty meal when they were like out there and there wasn't enough meat, but. I could actually see this potentially working. Even the popcorn kernels at the end, we don't chew those and we spit those out and we get some of the butter flavor. I could see this with some more flavors, maybe some like peppers and herbs and stuff mixed in there that actually could be something that's like quite tasty and like maybe like almost calorie free. I don't know. I could see this being something that could potentially take off.
Yeah, I like that bit of history of the fishermen. I mean, the idea that this is something you could throw in that tastes like fish, probably is salty too. And some people would probably be like, well, but you're not actually eating enough. Yeah, but how does that not, like, why is that not okay? Like if you go to a super fancy restaurant and you pay like $300 for a dish, there's barely any food on that dish. Why is that okay? But this is weird potentially. I don't know.
This is like a savor the flavor thing. So I think it's more about like tasting flavors and experience that. I'd try it. I would definitely try it at least.
Yeah, 100%. Look, I think it's the sort of dish that maybe you'd get, during one of your breaks at a Taylor Swift concert or something like that. No. But anyway, I don't know if it's available in America, but I would like to try it. I'm gonna look, maybe in LA. Anyway, that is unfortunately all the time we have for the show today. Special thanks, Daniel, for joining us on the show. Hopefully we'll talk again soon, but in the meantime, where can people follow more of your work?
It's me, Daniel Franzese. You can find me anywhere online at What's Up Danny or on my podcast, Yass Jesus, at Yass Jesus Pod or yassjesuspod.com.
Nice, awesome, good to have you here. Have a good one.
Thank you.
For those of you out there, Indisputable is up next, but also remember that in 34 minutes, we're gonna be going live with our monthly members hangout. So if you're a tier 3 member, you'd like to become one, we're gonna be going live. We're gonna be chit-chatting, having a lot of fun. We always have a good time, so I hope to see a bunch of you there. Also remember, you've got your homework for tomorrow. Brett Ehrlich will be joining us. We're gonna be throwing away our garbage people of the week, so head to the community tab on our YouTube page. You can vote for the community garbage person of the week, and we'll reveal that on tomorrow's show. For now though, stay safe out there, stay sane out there, and we'll see you soon.